Chapter 1, verse 7.
The path of those upon whom you have bestowed favor, not of those who have earned your anger or of those who are astray.
A Muslim also seeks the refuge of Allah, the Exalted, from the path of those who went astray. These are the people who do not search for the truth and instead wander blindly and aimlessly in this world. Instead of learning and acting on Islamic knowledge, they prefer to follow made-up practices, believing that they can carve their own path to the proximity of Allah, the Exalted. In a hadith found in Sunan Abu Dawud, number 4606, the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, warned that any matter which is not based on Islam will be rejected. If Muslims desire lasting success in both worldly and religious matters, they must strictly adhere to the teachings of the Holy Quran and the traditions of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. Even though certain actions which are not directly taken from these two sources of guidance can still be considered a righteous deed, it is important to prioritize these two sources of guidance over all else. Because the fact is that the more one acts on things which are not taken from these two sources, even if it is a righteous deed, the less they will act on these two sources of guidance. An obvious example is how many Muslims have adopted cultural practices into their lives which do not have a foundation in these two sources of guidance. Even if these cultural practices are not sins, they have preoccupied Muslims from learning and acting on these two sources of guidance as they feel satisfied with their behavior. This leads to ignorance of the two sources of guidance, which in turn will only lead to misguidance. This is why a Muslim must learn and act on these two sources of guidance which have been established by the leaders of guidance, and only then act on other voluntary righteous deeds if they have the time and energy to do so. But if they choose ignorance and made-up practices, even if they are not sins, over learning and acting on these two sources of guidance, they will not achieve success. Chapter 1, verse 7.
The path of those upon whom you have bestowed favor, not of those who have earned your anger or of those who are astray.
The path one is on in life is determined by the company they keep. So if one desires to journey down the straight path, they must accompany those who actively strive for the straight path and avoid those who desire and journey down different paths. In a hadith found in Sunan Abu Dawud, number 4031, the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, advised that a person who imitates a people is counted as one of them. All Muslims, irrespective of the strength of their faith, desire to be counted and end up with the righteous in the next world. But this hadith clearly warns that a Muslim will only be considered a righteous person and end up with them if they imitate the righteous. This imitation is a practical thing, not only a declaration through words. This imitation is correctly done by fulfilling the commands of Allah, the Exalted, refraining from His prohibitions, and by facing destiny with patience according to the traditions of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. But those who verbally declare their love for the righteous and fail to imitate them, and instead imitate the characteristics found in hypocrites and the sinful, will be considered and judged as one of them. This does not mean they will lose their faith, but it means they will be judged as disobedient Muslims. How can a disobedient Muslim be counted as an obedient Muslim and end up with the righteous? This is only wishful thinking which has no value in Islam. Chapter 59 Al-Hashr, verse 20.
Not equal are the companions of the fire and the companions of paradise. The companions of paradise, they are the attainers of success.
Chapter 1, verse 7.
The path of those upon whom you have bestowed favor, not of those who have earned your anger or of those who are astray.
If one observes history and even the present time, one clear distinction between the rightly guided and misguided groups is how each group used the resources and blessings they were given. Meaning, the rightly guided achieved right guidance as they used the blessings they were granted in ways pleasing to Allah, the Exalted. Whereas, the misguided misused the blessings they were given, and therefore they received the anger of Allah, the Exalted, and missed the straight path. Understanding this difference is the key to success in both worlds. Every worldly blessing a Muslim possesses is only a means which should aid them in reaching the hereafter safely. It is not an end in itself. For example, wealth is a means one should use in order to obey Allah, the Exalted, by fulfilling the commands of Allah, the Exalted, fulfilling their necessities and the necessities of their dependents. It is not an end or an ultimate goal in itself. This not only aids a Muslim in maintaining their focus on the hereafter, but it also aids them whenever they lose worldly blessings. When a Muslim treats each worldly blessing, such as a child, as a means to please Allah, the Exalted, and reach the hereafter safely, then losing it will not have such a detrimental impact on them. They may become sad, which is an acceptable emotion, but they will not become grieved, which leads to impatience and other mental problems, such as depression. This is because they firmly believe the worldly blessing they possessed was only a means, so losing it does not cause a loss in the ultimate goal, namely, paradise, the loss of which is disastrous. Therefore, still possessing and concentrating on the ultimate goal will prevent them from becoming grieved. In addition, they will understand that just like the thing they lost was only a means, they firmly believe they will be provided with another means to reach and fulfill their ultimate goal by Allah, the Exalted. This will also prevent them from grieving. Whereas, the one who believes their worldly blessing is the end instead of a means will experience severe grief when losing it, as their whole purpose and objective has been lost. This grief will lead to depression and other mental issues. To conclude, Muslims should treat each blessing they possess as a means to reach the hereafter safely, not as an end in itself. This is how one can possess things without being possessed by them. This is how they can keep worldly things in their hands and not in their hearts. A Muslim should not be fooled by the luxurious lifestyles of the misguided, as in reality the person who is truly successful is the one rightly guided by Allah, the Exalted. And right guidance is directly linked to his sincere obedience. This is the party that will obtain ultimate and eternal success, while the worldly success of the misguided will fade away and mean nothing on the Day of Judgment. Chapter 58 Al-Mujadila, verse 22.
Unquestionably, the party of Allah, they are the successful.
Chapter 1, verse 7.
The path of those upon whom you have bestowed favor, not of those who have earned your anger or of those who are astray.
This supplication creates both hope and fear in a Muslim. It creates hope as the Muslim who fulfills the first part of this supplication by practically following the righteous servants of Allah, the Exalted, by fulfilling the commands of Allah, the Exalted, refraining from his prohibitions, and by facing destiny with patience according to the traditions of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, will be protected from both the anger of Allah, the Exalted, and misguidance. This will ensure that they are rightly guided in all of their affairs in both worlds. They will be aided in overcoming all difficulties they may encounter in this world, so that they reach the hereafter with countless reward and blessings. On the other hand, this supplication creates fear in a Muslim, as the one who fails to practically follow the righteous servants of Allah, the Exalted, will not be protected from the anger of Allah, the Exalted, or misguidance. This will cause them to become impatient whenever they face difficulties. They will move from one stressful situation to the next until they reach the hereafter devoid of the mercy of Allah, the Exalted. This balance between fear and hope has been mentioned throughout the entire Holy Quran. Hope encourages one to sincerely obey Allah, the Exalted, and fear prevents one from becoming a wishful thinker. This occurs when one fails to sincerely obey Allah, the Exalted, and still believes they will somehow obtain success in both worlds. Muslims should seal the recitation of Chapter 1 Al-Fatihah with the word Ameen. This is a request to Allah, the Exalted, to accept the supplications mentioned in it. The one whose seal corresponds with an angel's seal will be forgiven their minor sins. This is advised in a hadith found in Sahih Baqarah number 782.
Over 400 free ebooks, audiobooks, infographics, podcasts and blogs available on our website, www.shaykhpod.com.